Have you ever sprinted down a hallway, heart hammering only to realize you've opened the wrong door? The one you pressed felt familiar under your fingertips, but what burst out on the other side was nothing like you expected. In a breathless second, Alex Turner swung into what he thought was maintenance interview room B and found himself facing the sleek mahogany table of OneCare Health's CEO. His battered boots scuffed the marble floor as he froze, resume clutched like a lifeline. Across from him, Isabella Quinn rose from behind her leather chair, the corners of her eyes tightening with recognition. The world narrowed to her voice, low and certain. "I've been waiting since 2010. That single line cracked open a decade of struggle, sacrifice, and unspoken debts, rewriting Alex's story before he even sat down. If you believe in life's unexpected pivots and the power of a single moment to change everything, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and drop a comment. What's the most surprising opportunity you've ever stumbled into? Alex Turner's boots had seen better days. The scuffed leather told stories of service calls at dawn, late-night repairs under flickering fluorescent lights, and one too many missed opportunities. But this morning he stood at the foot of a towering glass and steel edifice, clutching a crumpled resume and a manila folder as if it were a treasure map. Maintenance technician interviews were held on the 11th floor, so he'd been told. He slid through the revolving door into the cavernous lobby of OneCare Health. Polished marble floors reflected the soft glow of recessed lighting. A bank of elevators hummed patiently. Near the reception desk, a display touted the company's mission, bringing quality healthcare to every doorstep. Alex swallowed, rehearsed his answers under his breath, and pressed the call button for the 11th floor. The write-up was brief, but felt endless. He clutched the folder tighter, straightened his too-loose tie, and tried to calm the tremor in his fingers. His daughter Emma had helped him rehearse last night, her college textbook spread across the kitchen table as she quizzed him on every possible question. He had to nail this one. The rent was due and Sophie needed new tires on her bus. When the doors slid open, Alex took a breath and stepped forward, only to be met not by folding chairs or clipboards, but by plush carpet glass-walled offices and the quiet hum of wealth at work. A brass nameplate on a heavy oak door read, "Isabella Quinn, founder and CEO." He hesitated. "Maintenance technician interview," he called, voice cracking. "Come in," came a cool, measured reply. Alex's heart slammed against his ribs as he opened the door. The room was vast, a high-ceiling, floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a panoramic cityscape, and at its center, a long mahogany table. At the head, a woman stood, blonde hair swept into a low chignon slate-gray suit tailored to perfection. Her eyes were sharp, yet held a trace of warmth, as though she were reading his very soul. "Michael Carson." She asked, wrong name, wrong resume. Alex blinked. I'm Alex Turner." Her gaze flicked to the folder in his hand, then back to his face. "Alex Turner," she repeated softly. "Sit down." He crossed the room as if in a dream and lowered himself into the guest chair. His palms were slick. He wiped them on his pants. "Do I know you?" he asked, glancing around for hidden cameras or waiting interviewers who might appear at the last second. She didn't smile. "We met once," she said quietly. It was snowing on Highway 287 near Bozeman. Cold trickled down Alex's spine. That night flashed before him a raging blizzard, his crowbar smashing the Volvo's windshield, the flash of headlights as he pulled a fragile woman free from twisted metal. He'd wrapped her in his coat, refused the cash she offered, and vanished back into the storm to reach his sick wife. He hadn't thought of that rescue in years. "Isabella Quinn," he whispered. She nodded, fingers brushing against the table's polished surface. "I've been waiting since 2010. The words settled over him like snowfall. He opened his mouth, then closed it, throat tight. "I'm so sorry," he managed. "No apologies," she replied, voice steady. "Sit." She motioned to a seat across from her. Alex sank back, holding his folder as if it might save him. His mind raced, wrong place, wrong time, and yet every cell in his body told him this moment was right. "Why am I here?" he asked, nearly inaudible. Her eyes softened. "I need your help." She slid a second folder across the table. Inside lay schematics labeled Mobile Health Unit Pilot. Detailed diagrams, supply lists, operational routes, everything a maintenance technician would need to know. Alex's breath caught as he realized she wanted him to lead the caravans he'd only read about in the news. I, he began, because she said, leaning forward, "You understand what it means to show up when no one is watching. You saved my life once. Now I want you to help save lives every day." Alex Turner blinked, feeling the floor shift beneath him. The wrong interview had become his greatest opportunity. And in that marble-floored suite, a single moment of past kindness forged the first link of a future neither of them knew they needed until now. Alex's pulse hammered in his throat as Isabella leaned back in her chair, eyes never leaving his face. The sleek office around them, glass walls, polished floors, faded into the background. All that mattered was the echo of her words. It was 2010 on Highway 287. "You found me in a silver Volvo half buried in a snowdrift." He swallowed hard, the memory scrambling forward like wind-driven snow. He remembered the generator job up north, the call from the rest stop manager, a frozen power line, a grumbling diesel engine, the promise of one more paycheck before Christmas. And there'd been a storm, warning, nothing too dire, he'd thought. He'd driven past mile markers, the temperature gauge dipping the blacktop behind him, disappearing under a blanket of white. He must have been half asleep when the headlights picked out the sedan's taillights broken and blinking. He swerved, heart-twisting, as he imagined a stranded family in the silent night. Then the car came into view, nose buried, one wheel spinning futilely in slush. Snowflakes thick as feathers danced in his headlights. He parked his truck on the shoulder, flung on his coat, and yanked his crowbar from the trunk. He trudged through knee-deep drifts, breath stinging his lungs, until he heard her muffled plea. "Please, help." He smashed the driver's window shard, spraying like crystal, and hauled the door open. She was pale shock in her eyes, her coat shredded where metal had crushed it. "Hey, can you hear me?" He'd called, his voice rough with snow and adrenaline. He pressed his parka into her shoulders, her breath visible in short, ragged bursts. "Hold on. I'll get you out." He half-dragged, half-guided her to the truck, wrapping his arms around her to keep her upright. He turned back to the Volvo, rummaging his coat pockets for gloves and a flashlight. The storm-hammered branches bowed under snow, and the wind roared like a freight train. But he focused on his task, safety warmth moving forward. He laid her gently across the bench seat of his cab, cranked the defroster, and drove slowly toward the nearest town headlights cutting through the whiteout. He called 911, gave his name, her condition, and held the phone below the dash so she could hear. He didn't stay for thanks. He didn't need them. He only wanted to get home to his wife, whose chemo treatments had been rescheduled again that afternoon. That night, he didn't sleep. He dreamt of medical bills piling at his feet, of hospital corridors, of the woman in the Volvo with fear in her eyes. He closed his eyes and vowed to forget to tuck the moment away like a folded photograph he'd never look at again. And now, in this gleaming office, that moment had come rushing back in full color. Isabella's gaze softened, tracing the lines in his face. "I nearly lost consciousness before you arrived," she said quietly. "If you hadn't come—" Her voice trailed off. Alex rubbed his forehead. "I'm sorry, I didn't—" "Don't apologize," she interrupted gently. "I never got your name, but I never forgot you." Alex's throat tightened. "It was nothing," he murmured. "I was heading home." She tilted her head, studying him. "You didn't just save me, you disappeared before I could thank you. I tracked you down once, but I never found you. Then I buried it in my mind, focused on my work." She sighed as if releasing a held breath. "I built OneCare Health on a single principle: kindness matters. That night taught me that strangers can change our lives forever." His pulse slowed as he absorbed her words. She believed in him, this woman of influence and vision, because of a moment he thought was long dead. He shifted in his seat, uneasy under her steady gaze. "Why bring it up now?" he asked softly. "Because I've been waiting," she said, voice so low it was almost a whisper. "Not just to thank you, but to repay you." She reached into the folder before her and laid the blueprints for a mobile health van on the table. "I want you to lead this team. You know what it means to rescue a stranger in need. I need someone who will show up no matter the storm." Alex stared at the diagrams: onboard generators, vaccine refrigerators, diagnostic kiosks. He felt the weight of the role settling on his shoulders. It was practical work, the kind he knew, hands-on, honest, essential. And yet it was also profound, a direct line from the memory of that snowy night to a future saving lives every day. He inhaled and let the warmth of her belief in him wash over his doubts. I'd like that, he said, voice steady. Her lips curved in a small, triumphant smile. Welcome aboard. In that moment, Alex Turner realized he hadn't walked into the wrong room at all. He'd walked into the second chance he never knew he was looking for, born from a midnight rescue in a blizzard carried across a decade and delivered in a single life-changing moment. Alex Turner settled deeper into the guest chair, his limbs still tingling from the shock of that snowy rescue long buried in his mind. The polished wood armrests felt oddly comforting beneath his calloused palms. For a moment, the office's quiet grandeur, sunlight pooling on the marble floor, the distant hum of traffic faded into the background. All he could see was Isabella Quinn's steady gaze and the faint tremor in her jaw as she gathered her thoughts. I never asked your name. Isabella began, voice low but unwavering. That night, it was just another emergency for me. I had a talk to give at a conference the next morning, and the limousine. She paused, the memory pressing against her composure. It never made it to me. Not that night. Alex's throat tightened. I'm sorry you missed your talk. She managed a small, rueful smile. It was for the board of Biofarm Global. I'd been courted for months. The speech would have been my ticket to the C-suite. I had the outline in my head, clinical trials, market projections. But I was hospitalized instead with a concussion and a few cracked ribs. He winced. That must have been terrible. Worse was what happened afterward. She leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. I woke up in the hospital with a blank schedule and a laundry list of obligations I no longer felt passionate about. The board was disappointed. Investors murmured about my reliability. But in that bed, as I replayed your face through the haze of pain meds, I realized something I'd spent my life chasing: prestige. But prestige hadn't stopped my limo from sliding off the road. It hadn't given me a second chance. Alex swallowed hard. He reached for his folder as though he might hide in its crumpled pages. I never meant to derail your career, he said quietly. She waved a hand. You didn't. You saved my life. But more than that, you gave me clarity. She tapped the mobile unit schematic. When I left the hospital, I sold my shares in that pharmaceutical company and started One Care Health. No boardroom, no flashy launches, just a mission: bring care to people who can't afford it or can't reach it. I designed these vans to travel where hospitals don't. But I knew I'd need someone who understood more than business, someone who could fix what breaks, whether it's a vehicle, a medical device, or a life in crisis. Alex stared at the blueprint tracing the flow of power lines and storage compartments. I've never done anything like this, he said. I'm a small-town maintenance guy. Isabella's eyes glinted. Exactly. You see broken things, you repair them. You don't ask for recognition, you just do it. That's rare in healthcare. Everyone wants a billboard. You, Alex, are the billboard. He managed a laugh, wry and unsteady. I've always preferred unplugged lights. She leaned back, a hint of laughter in her shoulders. Unplugged light can guide us home just as well. She paused, scanning his face. What do you say? You sit here, or you stand there. You stay in your boots, or you step into these vans. You can keep running mechanical lines in another town, or you can run a mission that changes lives. Her voice softened, including mine. Alex closed his eyes. The memory of that wind-chilled highway, the lit dashboard, the frantic 911 call, it all rushed over him. And beneath it, the ache he'd buried, worry over his wife's failing health, his daughter's future bills piling up like snowdrifts. He'd spent years surviving the storm. Now he could drive it, control it, even flourish in it. He opened his eyes. I'll do it, he said, voice firm. I'll help build these units and keep them running wherever you need me. Isabella's relief was palpable. She rose and crossed to the table's end, offering her hand. Welcome to One Care Health, Alex Turner. He stood, taking her hand. Her grip was strong, reassuring. In that moment, he felt the weight of possibility settle in his chest. The wrong interview room had become the right one, and the lifeline he'd tucked away years ago had come back to anchor him. She guided him to the window. Below, the city stretched out like a living map. Neighborhoods, hospitals, clinics, and the empty patches between them. This, she said, is why we do it. She tapped the window. In a world that races forward, we stop for people. We bring the light to them. Alex leaned in, looking beyond the glass toward a future that was finally within reach, not just for him, but for every life these vans would touch. He inhaled, tasted the faint scent of pine from the office's lone potted tree and the city's exhaust down below. He let it remind him of that snowy night, the cold, the darkness, and the single beam of warmth that changed everything. No fanfare greeted them, no cheers, no flashing cameras, just the soft click of two lives aligning their courses. And as he turned back to Isabella, Alex Turner realized that sometimes being a survivor means stepping forward, becoming the savior you once needed. In that polished office under the hum of glass and steel, he accepted not just a job, but a calling that was born in the snow and carried through a decade of storms. He sat again, but this time with a sense of purpose beyond the resume in his hand. Isabella picked up his folder, and together they pored over the blueprints discussing routes, maintenance schedules, staffing logistics. Their voices blended with the city's distant symphony, a dialogue of compassion and mechanics of strategy and service. Outside traffic flowed on, unaware that in that corner office, the smallest moment from long ago, had sparked an engine of hope. And as Alex Turner traced each line on those sacred documents, he felt the first true warmth of second chances blooming in his chest, ready to illuminate every broken road ahead. Alex Turner exhaled, feeling the weight of the moment settle between them like a soft snowdrift. He'd prepared himself for polite dismissal, an apologetic, "We appreciate your interest," and another resume tossed onto the growing heap of also-rans. Instead, Isabella Quinn was leaning forward, her fingers laced on the polished table eyes, bright with purpose. "I want you on the road," she said. Alex blinked. He shook his head as if to clear it. I thought you were interviewing for maintenance staff. I mean, it's an office." Isabella smiled the kind of smile that reached her eyes and warmed her whole face. "This is maintenance staff, just not the kind you find in an office tower." She tapped the schematic on the table. OneCare's mobile health units, refrigeration for vaccines onboard generators. Diagnostic kiosks, we travel to communities where hospitals are a day's drive away. We need someone who can fix anything anywhere. He swallowed. "I've changed light bulbs and unclogged drains," he murmured. "I've even rewired coffee machines on a cold morning. But medical equipment isn't so different," she interrupted gently. "It's precision and care. You've spent your life solving problems without fanfare. You never asked for credit when you pulled me from that wreck. You just did what needed to be done." Alex looked down at his hands, rough and ink-stained, the kind of hands that remembered every bolt and wrench. He thought of his daughter Emma, off at college and too busy for nightly calls. He thought of his late wife Lisa and the radiator he'd fixed to keep her warm in her last days. He'd lived 100 unseen moments of quiet heroism. This would feel familiar. He dared to meet Isabella's gaze. "What exactly would you have me do?" She reached for a cup of water and set it before him. "You'd oversee the maintenance and rapid repair of our fleet. When a van's engine sputters on a gravel road, you're the one who gets it moving again. When vaccines threaten to spoil, you're the one who spots the coolant leak. When diagnostics kiosks freeze up in a winter storm, you're there hands-on, making sure care keeps flowing." Alex picked up the glass, fingers curling around it. The water was cool against his palm. "You're talking about long days, nights under the stars, driving down brush-filled back roads." Isabella leaned in. "Exactly. It's not a desk job. It isn't meant to be glamorous. It's meant to matter." He set the glass down, sensing the gravity of her words. "I'd have to travel alone sometimes," he said. "I'm not exactly social." She chuckled softly. "You're not the chattiest guy at the brunch buffet, but out where we go, people aren't looking for small talk. They're looking for someone to show up when no one else does." Alex's heart thumped. He'd been invisible so long that the idea of being needed, truly needed, felt foreign and thrilling. "And the team," he asked. "Do they respect guys like you," Isabella answered. "You're not a suit barking orders. You're someone who understands the value of a working machine when a life depends on it. You'll be their anchor in the field." He closed his eyes briefly, seeing himself crouched under a van in sleet headlights, cutting fog tools spread like instruments of healing. He saw himself in the driver's seat, the mobile clinic's engine purring after his repair. He saw the faces of patients waiting in the back, Children with coughs, elders with aching bones trusting him to keep the unit alive. He opened his eyes. "What about training?" he asked quietly. Isabella smiled again, that resilient curve of soft steel. "I'll ride with you," she said. "We'll tackle the first 6 units together. Then you'll run solo, but I'll always be a radio call away." "I trust you with lives, Alex." He blinked, feeling tears threaten. "Shh! I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she said simply. "You don't have to sign anything right now. Go home, think it over, talk to Emma. But know this, we need you. I need you." Her sincerity was a mirror reflecting the man he had been and the man he longed to become. He remembered the hope he'd clutched in this same folder years ago, hope that had dimmed under the glare of hospital bills and dead-end paychecks. Now possibility glowed once more. He swiped a hand over his face. "I want to say yes," he said, voice rough. "I need to say yes." Isabella rose, extending her hand. He stood and took it. Her grip was firm, grounding him. "Welcome aboard, Alex Turner," she said. He exhaled in relief, the tension seeping away. He settled back into his chair for a moment, letting the decision sink in. It wasn't just a job offer, it was a lifeline cast to a man adrift for far too long. They spent the next hour hashing out details, schedules, supply chains, field protocols. His questions were met with practical answers and thoughtful support. He learned the mechanics of the onboard generators, the backup systems for cold storage, the remote diagnostics apps they'd developed. Isabella sketched a route from the city to an isolated mining town, nodding as he pointed out potential hazards, narrow passes, landslide zones, river crossings. By the time he closed his folder, Alex felt more certain than ever. The wrong interview had become the pivot point of his life. He imagined the unvarnished roads ahead, mud-slick forest trails, sun-baked desert highways, early mornings refilling the water tank in a gentle dawn, late nights repairing heat strips in an icebound canyon. He imagined the smiles of patients who'd see the OneCare logo and no help had arrived. Isabella walked him to the elevator. As its doors closed, she called Monday 6 a.m., back here. He nodded, the quiet thrill of anticipation in his chest. "I'll be here." The doors slid shut, and when he stepped back into the lobby, the polished world seemed softer, more welcoming. He slipped his resume into his coat pocket, warehoused now by fate, and took the stairs 2 at a time. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and city traffic. He drew in a deep breath, savoring the cold. He thought of Emma, how he'd tell her tonight, and of Lisa, how he'd honor her memory with every repair that saved a life. As Alex Turner walked away from the glass doors of OneCare health boots clicking on the pavement, he realized this was more than a job. It was redemption. It was purpose. It was the chance to transform hands that once broke windows in desperation into hands that saved lives in every corner of the map. And in the distance, a new chapter waited unwritten, brimming with promise, carried on the wheels of a mobile clinic and the integrity of a man who showed up when it mattered most. Alex Turner stepped out of the glass doors and into the crisp autumn air, his lungs filling with a chill that felt like possibility. The sky was a pale blue streaked with clouds that drifted lazily overhead. Sidewalk leaves, amber rust and gold crunched under his boots. As he walked, the city's pulse around him softened by the season's hush. For the first time in years, he felt alive. He let the sidewalk carry him without direction past storefronts streaked with October sales signs and outdoor cafes where patrons sipped lattes under strings of fairy lights. He tucked his hands into the pockets of his coat fingertips, brushing the bulge of his resume, no longer a lifeline, but a relic of what had brought him here. His mind drifted to Lisa. He saw her again in the yellow hospital gown, laughing through a raspy cough as he struggled to fix the old radiator in their basement apartment. She'd teased him that morning, "You're going to be the best-looking tech guy at my support group." He had smiled, heart aching in its hollow place fingers, cold from grease, but warmed by her wink. He hadn't felt grease on his hands for months. The thought made him grin. Soon he would. He paused at a corner, the early sun glinting off a copper spire in the distance. He remembered holding Emma as a child, her fingers tight around his. "Daddy," she'd said, "you make the world work." She hadn't understood mechanics then, only that when he fixed something, it meant safety, comfort, love. Now she was at university, smart, independent, struggling with her own dreams. He pulled out his phone thumb, hovering over her contact. Before he dialed, he realized he wanted to tell her in person. He pictured her on video chat, long brown curls, tired smile, the books scattered across her dorm desk. He wanted her to know this wasn't just good news, it was a homecoming of hope. He swung onto a tree-lined street he'd walked 1,000 times, where old brick townhouses stood shoulder to shoulder like loyal friends. He passed Mrs. Delgado's flower shop pumpkins, and mums spilling from wooden crates, and smelled the sharp sweetness of chrysanthemums. He thought of Lisa's favorite bright yellow daisies she kept in mismatched jars. He'd never told Emma why daisies, but it didn't matter. She knew daisies meant sunshine after rain. At the corner deli, he stopped for coffee, the same black coffee he used to nurse while grading bills. He ordered and watched the barista pour steam curling in the air like a promise. He took the cup and set off again, savoring the first bitter sip. He let the warmth travel from his lips through his chest, displacing years of cold worry. He'd spent so long defending himself against survival, patching leaky pipes, rationing every penny, fighting insurance delays, late fees, hospital visits. Now he wasn't just surviving, he was on the brink of building something bigger than himself. He navigated the familiar blocks until he saw the faded green awning of his apartment building. The metal stairs creaked underfoot as he climbed 2 flights to his door. Inside, a single bulb glowed overhead, illuminating a small hallway lined with framed photos. There, a snapshot of Emma at her high school graduation cap, at a jaunty angle broad grin that mirrored his own. He pressed his forehead against the cool frame. "I did it, kiddo," he murmured, straightening the photo. "Dad." Emma's voice floated up from the kitchen, tentative and sleepy. He shelved the coffee on the side table and turned the knob, stepping through into the warmth of lamp-lit walls and the scent of macaroni bubbling on the stove. Emma sat at the kitchen table, textbook splayed open, pen in hand. Her sweatshirt read State University Class of 26. She looked up, eyes widening. "You look—" She paused, searching his face. "Is that a real smile?" He chuckled, sitting opposite her. "First one in a while. How's the study session going?" She rubbed her temple. "Regents, Pride and Prejudice, archaic stuff. But I'll survive." She offered him a half grin that melted his chest. "I've got news," he said, voice unsteady. He reached into his coat. Emma tilted her head, expecting bills or a threadbare photograph. Instead, he pulled out the folder, his old resume, and handed it to her. She opened it, eyebrows lifting. "What's this? I'm not job hunting," he said, leaning back. "I walked into the wrong office today, and it was the right one." Her pen clattered onto the table. Wrong office. He told her about OneCare Health. The sleek lobby, the unexpected reunion with Isabella Quinn, the rescue in the blizzard, the vision to bring care to the forgotten corners of the map. He described the mobile health units, vans, bristling with medical gear rolling into remote towns, and the pivotal role she'd offered him, chief maintenance technician, guardian of life-saving machines. Emma's mouth fell open. "Dad, that's amazing." He watched her absorb each detail, saw the spark in her eyes. "They want me on the road fixing boilers, generators, refrigerators. All of it. They need someone who shows up when it matters." She reached across the table, covering his hand. "That's exactly what you do, Dad. You show up." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "I want to do more than show up. I want to make a difference." Emma smiled, proud and tender. "You will. You've earned it." They fell into an easy silence, broken only by the soft hiss of the stove. He sipped his coffee, feeling the last of his doubts wash away. This place, this crusty apartment filled with the echoes of their past, had sheltered him through loss and struggle. But now it felt like the springboard to something new. He looked at Emma. "We ever talk about moving somewhere warmer?" he teased lightly. She rolled her eyes, but the smile lingered. "Only after you're famous for mobile health clinics." He laughed, a deep, genuine sound that felt as clean as the autumn air outside. "I'll take it." Later, as Emma packed up her books and headed to her room, Alex lingered by the window. Streetlights blinked on and the city exhaled into evening. He traced the skyline towers and rooftops etched against the darkening sky and envisioned the long roads ahead, pine-forested highways, dusty plains, gravel paths. He pictured OneCare vans slicing through dawn mist, children waving, elders smiling with relief. He rolled down his sleeve, revealing a faded scar on his forearm from that night in the snow. He pressed a finger to it, honoring the line between then and now. The storm he'd survived had led him here to a homecoming of hope, where every repair was a renewal and every mile traveled a testament to second chances. His phone buzzed a text from Isabella Quinn. "Welcome aboard. Reports come in Monday. See you at 6. He gripped the windowsill. "I'll be there," he murmured. Above him, the first star emerged. He closed his eyes and made a promise to honor Lisa's memory, to support Emma's future, and to bring light to the shadowed corners of the world. Then he turned from the window and flicked off the hall light. As he climbed the stairs to his bedroom, his heart felt full in a way it hadn't in years. That night, Alex Turner dreamed not of broken engines or hospital bills, but of a convoy of one-care vans on a ribbon of highway headlights, shining engines humming hope on 4 wheels. And when he woke before dawn, the world beyond his window was already stirring, ready for the man who had found his way home again. The sky was barely light when Alex climbed into the driver's seat of Van Alpha 1 Care Health's first mobile unit, its engine humming like a purring cat ready to prowl the country roads. Isabella stepped up beside him, clipboard in hand, her dark ponytail tucked under a baseball cap for the first time since he'd met her. He offered her a nod of greeting. She returned it with a tight smile that spoke of anticipation and nerves both. "Ready?" she asked, voice low over the idling engine. Alex glanced at the neat row of equipment racks behind him. Vaccine refrigerators, portable autoclaves, handheld diagnostic kiosks. "Ready as I'll ever be." She climbed in, planting herself in the passenger seat. "Let's test your mettle." Isabella handed him a sheet and equipment checklist and route map. He scanned it quickly. Site 1, a rural elementary school 30 miles north. Site 2, a food pantry in a farming village. Final stop, a weekend health fair in an old church hall. She tapped the printed refrigeration specs. Temperatures, diagnostics. "Let's start with the fridge." They rolled out of the parking bay into the still muted city streets, headlights slicing through dawn's dim haze. Conversation flowed easily. Isabella asked about his granddaughter's college studies. He quizzed her on coffee orders. The early morning lull felt like a prelude to something larger, the city's hustle yet to wake. At the first stop, they squeezed through the school's narrow driveway, winter mud clinging to the tires. Alex hopped out a tool bag slung over his shoulder. Isabella followed, letting him lead the way to the back of the van. Alex flipped open the rear hatch, revealing the chill interior. He ran gloved fingers along the freezer's seal eyes, narrowing in appraisal. "Go on," Isabella said. "Show me." He pressed a diagnostic button, and the fridge's internal temperature lit up on a small screen 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Within spec, but not by much. He smiled and popped open the door, exposing rows of vials packed in a foam rack. "We'll swap the coolant line," he told her, pulling a handheld wrench from his bag. "It's quick work." Isabella watched as he knelt on one knee, unlatching the protective panel. With practiced precision, he detached a corroded hose, its metal fitting puckered by age. The new line clicked into place, and he closed the panel, sealing the compartment. Then he pressed the monitor again 35 degrees. He gave her a thumbs up. "Perfect," she said, relief coloring her tone. "I never had to get my hands this dirty." She paused, leaning closer to inspect a spool of tubing. "Back when we launched the first clinic, my team and I were unpacking boxes at dawn. I ended up hand-painting our logo on the side of our first unit after the stencil kit broke on day 1. Alex laughed, picturing a younger Isabella crouched in paint-splattered jeans. She continued, "We didn't have fancy service contracts. We drained and refilled coolant by hand out of a watering can while I argued prices with equipment suppliers over the phone. That van was held together with duct tape and sheer willpower." He grinned. "Sounds character building. Character saved lives," she corrected gently. "Now you're the one preserving lives with your building skills." Her eyes sparkled as she handed him a cup of coffee. On to the kiosks. They packed up and rolled on the morning sun, cresting fields of frosted wheat. The van's radio played soft jazz as Alex navigated winding 2 lanes. When they reached Site 2, a converted barn where families queued for free groceries, he guided the van into a makeshift driveway. People lined up under a tent, children in bright jackets clutching stuffed animals. Alex waved and Isabella waved back her presence, both authoritative and approachable. Inside the barn, he unloaded the diagnostic kiosk's touchscreen units that measured blood pressure, heart rate, and blood glucose. One was unresponsive. Its screen flickered, then froze. He shrugged off his coat and knelt beside it, prying open a panel on the back with his multi-tool. Circuit boards lay beneath small wires, snaking across layered boards. "Go ahead," he said without looking up. "What do you see?" She peered over his shoulder, brow furrowed. A loose connection at the power jack. He smiled broadly. Bingo. He reseated the connector and sealed it up. The screen blinked alive, offering a welcome message. Isabella let out a breath. "You're not just a maintenance guy. You're a miracle worker." He chuckled, wincing as he straightened. A volunteer nurse approached, clipboard in hand. "We were worried we'd have to cancel screenings," she said. "Thank you." Alex nodded, shrugging away praise. Isabella gave him a proud wink. He felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of belonging he hadn't known since before Lisa got sick. Mid-morning found them at the church hall, where local families gathered for flu shots and health checkups. The van's generator hummed outside, powering medical lights and laptop chargers. Alex tightened a loose bolt on a water pump and declared it sound. Isabella handed him a lunch sandwich meatloaf on rye, wrapped in parchment paper. "Sophisticated," he teased. She laughed, unwrapping her own turkey club. "You deserve real food for real work. Got time for a break." He sank onto a folding chair as she perched beside him. The hall's windows framed a panorama of trees in peak color crimson, gold, and auburn. People filtered in and out, raising their arms for injections, chatting in soft voices. "Do you ever miss the boardroom?" Alex asked between bites. Isabella tilted her head. "My boardroom had no purpose once I lost you that night. Here I'm accountable every day. Faces in need, communities underserved. This is my board." She traced her finger on the table's chip. "It's messy, unpredictable, but it's honest. And it's where I've found the most meaning." He nodded, feeling the hum of truth behind her words. "Meaning's the best kind of job security. Right?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "You remind me why I started this, how a single act of compassion can echo for years." Alex set down his sandwich. "I never thought my hands would be part of something like this. I always fixed toilets and generators, never medicine." She reached out and touched his arm. "You're fixing more than machines. You're fixing access. You're ensuring vaccines stay potent, tests stay accurate, lives stay whole." He took a steadying breath, the echo of her appreciation fueling his confidence. A child's laughter drifted in from the hall. He looked up to see a small boy peering into the kiosk window, eyes wide with curiosity. "Can I see the boy?" asked. Alex lifted the boy onto a stool. "Sure thing. Watch me turn it on." He powered up the machine and guided the boy's small fingers to tap the start button. The boy giggled at the feel of the cool screen. Isabella watched warm pride in her gaze. "See?" she murmured. "You're inspiring the next generation." He caught her eye and smiled. "I like that." By late afternoon, they packed away the last syringe holders and diagnostic cards. The van's interior was spotless, ready for tomorrow's route. Isabella offered to drive back. Alex declined, opting to steer. He fired up the engine, pulling out onto the highway as evening's auburn light faded to indigo. The ride home was a comfortable silence, the miles ticking by under the van's steady hum. He thought of the day's work, the whir of compressors, the click of diagnostic boots, the thank you smiles of strangers. He replayed Isabella's startup stories, duct-taped vans, midnight phone calls, boardroom blowback. He saw the parallels between her grit and his own. The late nights, the endless troubleshooting, the refusal to give in to despair. When they pulled back into the one-care garage, side lights glowing, Isabella placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well today," she said. "I know we said 6 training runs together, but if you ever need someone in the field..." She tapped the van's side emblem. "Call me. I'll be there." He nodded, the warmth in his chest matching the glow of the overhead lamps. "Thanks. It means a lot." She offered him a genuine smile. No boardroom polish, just human relief. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we do it again." Alex climbed out, stretching muscles he'd forgotten he had. He locked the van and turned to her. "I never thought I'd look forward to sunrise," he admitted. "Sunrise and coffee," she teased, unzipping her jacket. "One more thing," your daughter called. "She's coming home this weekend." He blinked. "She is..." His voice cracked with the surprise and joy he felt. I'll tell her I'm otherwise engaged." She laughed a light, clear sound that followed him as he walked away. That night in his apartment, Alex sank onto his couch and closed his eyes. He felt the subtle ache of muscles stretched in service. The gentle buzz of adrenaline faded to contentment. Outside his window, city lights blinked on, and he was no longer alone in a silent struggle. He was part of something bigger, something that healed bodies and hearts alike. He drifted to sleep with a sense of purpose cradling him, ready for the promise of dawn, the promise of again showing up when it mattered most. Alex Turner returned to the One Care garage after an early morning route armor of grease and dust still clinging to his sleeves. The late winter sun slanted through high windows, dust motes drifting like silent witnesses. As he stowed his tools and logged the van's final readings, he noticed the cardboard box he'd shoved into a corner the night before, marked in faded ink old papers. Curiosity tugged at him. He pulled it down and set it on a low workbench, wincing when the dust swirled around his face. Inside, he found envelopes of bills and insurance statements, an old hospital discharge summary with half-legible stamps, and a stack of letters he'd never mailed. He lifted the top one-line notebook paper, its fold lines worn soft. His handwriting tilted in neat columns, a younger man's script. "To the woman I pulled from the snow." Alex's breath caught. He hadn't thought about this letter in years. He eased open the fold, the paper crackling. The words he'd written under fluorescent hospital lights flooded back. "I don't know your name, but I know your eyes were as frozen as the road. You tried to hand me money. I refused because it felt wrong to profit from a stranger's fear. I was headed home to my wife, and I still am. But for a moment you reminded me why I keep going. People matter more than plans. You mattered. I hope you made it to your conference and discovered something worth fighting for. One day I hope I can repay this kindness. Maybe you'll never see this, but I needed you to know you made a difference in a dark night." Signed, Michael Carson. He blinked once, then twice, as the memories surfaced: the sting of the bitter air, the feel of her coat across his shoulders, the hum of his truck's heater bringing warmth back into her cheeks. He'd never mailed that letter, couldn't bear to intrude on someone he'd barely known. Yet here it was, a bridge between past and present, yellowed but intact. He folded it again, slid it into his coat pocket, and left the garage without a word. The elevator to Isabella's office seemed to take forever. His heart hammered, uncertainty swirling like the dust he'd disturbed. Would she even remember this scrap of paper? Would it matter now that he was her lead technician? On the 11th floor, the receptionist looked up from her screen. "You here for a meeting, Mr. Turner?" she asked politely, scanning her book of appointments. Alex cleared his throat. "Yes, with Ms. Quinn at—" He pulled out his schedule. 2 o'clock. She tapped a key. "Right this way." He followed her down the glass-walled corridor, flanked by the soft hum of conversations and distant printer clicks. He rehearsed his greeting, rehearsed nothing, just whatever authenticity he could muster. She opened her door before he knocked. Isabella stood by the window, hands folded in front of her. She turned, surprise flickering across her composed face. "Alex, what a surprise. Back so soon." He swallowed. I found something I wrote a long time ago." Her brow drew in. He held out the folded paper. "I never sent this. I figured now might be the right time." Isabella accepted the note with gentle reverence, as though it were made of glass. He shut the door behind him, his shadow merging with hers against the frosted glass. The room felt smaller now, more intimate, the leather chairs, the potted fiddle-leaf fig, the glow of afternoon sun through gray drapes. She unfolded the letter. He watched her fingers tremble as she smoothed its creases. He traced the line between them with his gaze, studying her expression, anticipation, trepidation, something like gratitude. He wasn't sure he was ready for how raw this moment would be. When she spoke, her voice was hushed. "I remember writing a version of this in my head," she said, eyes on the page. "But I never knew who you were." She paused, inhaling slowly. "I never thought I'd hold your words in my hands." Alex shifted his weight. "It was a moment I couldn't let die. You saved me, but you probably didn't know I'd been dying on the inside that night, every expectation I'd built for myself gone in an instant. When I pulled you out, I realized kindness was my only currency. You taught me that." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. She raised her gaze, and Alex saw lines of vulnerability etched into the woman who'd seemed so invincible. You did more than teach me. You gave me a reason to rebuild. I see that now, how your act of compassion became the cornerstone of One Care Health. Your belief in humanity carried me through years of boardrooms and power struggles. He backed away slightly as though the warmth in her gaze might burn him. I never saw it that way, he confessed. I saw a woman in need, didn't think beyond that. She folded the letter and tucked it into a plush folder on her desk. That's the beauty of it, she said, voice thick with emotion. You saw a stranger and acted. I saw a stranger and remembered how to believe. And today, every time I drive onto a dirt road to bring care to someone's front door, I carry your kindness with me. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was alive, pulsing with two souls laid bare. The office's grandeur receded until all he could focus on was Isabella's steady breathing, the soft click of her heels as she stepped closer. I want you to know, she said, her hand hovering over his, that this company, this mission, it's built on your kindness, and I'm deeply grateful. Alex's throat tightened. He looked down at their hands nearly touching and then back at her face glistening with tears. Thank you for bringing me back, he whispered, for giving me work that matters and letting me be part of something I can be proud of. She nodded, letting out a shaky breath. You've given me so much more than that. In that shared glance, time folded in on itself, the stormy highway, the hushed hospital corridors, the gleaming conference room, the honking engines of the mobile clinic. Past and present converged in a powerful promise they would move forward together, not just as CEO and technician, but as two people bound by an unsung letter and the truth it revealed. They stood in the quiet aftermath of confession, neither ready to break the spell with small talk. Finally, Isabella broke the silence. I'll frame this, she said, touching the letter gently. It belongs here. She motioned to the empty wall beside her desk, already picturing it as a testament to their shared journey. Alex nodded, his heart unburdened for the first time in years. Thank you, he whispered once more, for this and for everything. As he turned to leave, he realized there was no wrong room, no misstep. Every path, every snow-laden mile, every sleepless night, every bolt he'd tightened had led him here. And as he stepped back into the hallway, he carried with him the weight of that letter, now transformed from an unsent hope into a living bond that would guide them both through every road to come. Alex was elbow-deep in the van's engine bay when the email arrived. He wiped his grease-streaked forehead and peered at his phone screen. Urgent suspension pending investigation. His chest tightened as he read further discrepancies found in Service Unit C's maintenance logs. Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty until further notice. His stomach dropped. He blinked at the words as though willing them away. His hand, still wrapped around the spark plug wrench, trembled ever so slightly. Doubt churned like a storm cloud in his mind. No, he whispered, voice rough. That can't be right. He backed out of the engine bay, heart pounding. In the back of the garage, the early morning light drained away, leaving soft shafts of gloom. Joe, the fleet supervisor, appeared around the corner, eyebrows raised. I heard he said quietly, Log entries flagged your sign-off last night. Upper management wants answers. Alex dropped the wrench and shook his head. I didn't alter anything, he said, voice small. I signed off after I flushed the lines and checked the temps. That unit was perfect. Joe sighed, defeated. I know you did. But digital records don't lie, or so they say. He paused, resting a hand on Alex's shoulder. I'm sorry, man. Alex glanced at him, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Thanks. He turned and tightened his jaw. I'll fix it. He raced to his locker, yanked out his notebook where he'd tracked every pump test, every gasket replacement. His pen flew across the pages as he cross-referenced times and tachometer readings. Nothing on his end had gone wrong. Yet the internal logs showed someone had reversed the entries, marking the unit's temperature out of spec for 3 hours after he'd clocked out. He stormed to Isabella's office resume folder, tucked under one-arm notebook in hand. The hallway was quiet, hushed whispers drifting behind closed doors. He hesitated at her door, heart hammering. He'd never barged in unannounced before, but this time he had to break protocol. He knocked twice louder than usual. When she called, Come in, his resolve steadied. He stepped inside, eyes flicking to the framed letter on her wall and then to her chair. Isabella looked up from her laptop, concern immediately flooding her features. Alex. What's wrong? He dropped into the guest chair, sliding his notebook across the desk. Someone tampered with the logs, he said flatly. They made it look like I didn't maintain Unit C properly. They've suspended me pending investigation. Her eyes narrowed, jaw tightening. Who? He shook his head. I don't know yet, but it wasn't me. He clicked open the digital printout in his hand. See, this timestamp's changed after I signed out at 6:15. Someone with access logged in at 7:20 and altered the entries. Isabella leaned back silent for a long moment. Then she stood and crossed to the window, pressing a hand against the cool glass. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the personal storm unfolding in her office. She drew in a breath and turned to him. Bring me everything you have. Over the next hour, Alex laid out his evidence workshop notes, security camera timestamps from the garage entrance, the van's diagnostic report showing a clean bill of health after his sign-off. Isabella listened without interrupting, absorbing every detail. When he finished, she nodded once. Thank you, she said. I'll handle this. He rose to leave, but she caught his arm. Don't go anywhere. He paused, eyes searching hers. Is this going to take long? She managed a small, confident grin. Not if I can help it. Over the next 2 days, Isabella quietly mobilized her contacts. She summoned the head of HR for a closed-door meeting presenting the security footage showing Alex leaving the garage at 6:10, rushing home for a family emergency, an unplanned hospital visit for his niece, he'd told her. She pointed out timestamps on his shift log, the GPS data from the mobile app showing his route, every meticulous record he'd kept. She confronted the team's junior technician, Derek, whose badge swipe matched the altered entries. His protest dissolved under the weight of timestamps and surveillance. By the end of the meeting, Derek was suspended pending formal review. Meanwhile, Isabella issued a company-wide memo, Integrity and Accountability Form, the bedrock of OneCare Health. False accusations and tampering will not be tolerated. She reinstated Alex with immediate effect, sending a personalized email copying HR and the board. Mr. Turner's reputation is beyond reproach. We apologize for the distress this incident caused him. On the morning Alex arrived, he found Isabella waiting by Van Beta. Her stance unwavering. He climbed out, spotting the new memo on the bulletin board. Relief surged in his chest as he read the words of support from the highest office. Isabella offered him a cup of coffee, strong black, and met his gaze squarely. I heard what happened, she said softly. Are you okay? Alex took a shaky sip, savoring the warmth. Thanks to you, he replied. He paused, searching for the right word. I was terrified of losing my place. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. You won't lose me, she said firmly. I know who you are, Alex. I trust you more than anyone on this team. Don't let one person's jealousy make you doubt your worth. He nodded, the tremor in his shoulders easing. I almost did. She placed a hand on his arm. Then let's get to work. We've got hospitals to reach. Her smile was gentle and strong. Besides, I need my miracle worker back on the road. He matched her smile with one of his own, steady, genuine. I'm here. Together they climbed into Van Beta, Isabella in the passenger seat, Alex at the wheel. As he fired up the engine, the dashboard lights glimmered into life. He glanced at her, the man who once pulled her from a frozen wreck, now pulling a mission forward through rugged terrain. Next stop, he asked, scanning the route on the GPS. She handed him the itinerary. Pine Valley Clinic. They're expecting us at 10. He nodded, shifting the van into gear. The tires rumbled over cracked pavement, echoing his renewed resolve. Isabella watched him over the dash, pride and relief shining in her eyes. As they pulled away, Alex allowed himself a breath he'd been holding for days. An exhale of vindication, of belonging, of standing up not just for himself, but for the values that had brought them together. The open road stretched before them, and in the back of the van, life-saving equipment waited. Together they drove on, unwavering in their purpose. And in that shared mission built on kindness, trust, and unwavering support, their bond deepened, unbreakable against any storm or saboteur that dared to cross their path. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of OneCare's planning room, illuminating a long table strewn with blueprints, laptops, and coffee cups. Isabella Quinn stood at the head of the table, sliding a fresh set of schematics toward Alex Turner. Her voice, calm but energized, carried across the hushed room of engineers and project managers. "Alex," she began, "this is the layout for our Pine Valley Clinic Hub, but I want you to co-lead this build with me." He let the edge of the paper brush his fingertips. Next to him, his tool bag sat like an old friend ready for the field. He looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Me co-lead?" he asked, voice steady but incredulous. She met his gaze with a faint, confident smile. "You've earned it. Your work on the mobile unit showed me how to balance compassion with practicality. I need that perspective here on a larger scale." Alex traced the corridors on the blueprint reception exam rooms, a lab storage for supplies, and a community meeting space. Each line represented hours of need assessment in rural clinics where patients once waited in line under tents. He thought of the van's hum fading behind him as he walked away from patient after patient who couldn't come to the city. Now they'd come to a permanent place of care. The weight of that responsibility settled in his chest like a promise. "I don't have an architectural background," he admitted, "but I know how to build things that last. If you have faith in me, I'm honored." Isabella tapped the plans. "It's not about degrees, it's about experience. You know what breaks and how to fix it. That's more valuable to our patients than any certificate." He nodded, feeling a rush of pride. Around them, team members stirred some exchanged smiles at Alex. Others jotted notes as Isabella outlined timelines. She introduced him. "This is Alex Turner, our Director of Field Operations. He'll be coordinating construction schedules, ensuring equipment compatibility, and troubleshooting any issues on site." Hands shot up with questions about power backups, supply chain contingencies, local contractor bids. Alex leaned forward, offering clear, concise answers drawn from years of hands-on maintenance and logistics. He spoke of mobile van repairs, then translated those lessons to load-bearing walls and HVAC systems. His confidence built with each response. He realized that leadership didn't require mastery of every detail, just the ability to find solutions and rally a team. By noon, they broke for a working lunch in the adjacent kitchenette, where volunteers from headquarters assembled sandwiches. Isabella grabbed a plate, motioning Alex to join her at a small table by the window. The cityscape stretched behind them, cranes and rooftops, a testament to the world they were reshaping. "Thank you for stepping up," she said quietly, carrying 2 turkey clubs wrapped in foil. "I know you've already given everything to One Care." He took a bite and chewed thoughtfully before replying. "I believe in what we're doing. It feels personal." He glanced at her. "You gave me that chance when I needed it most." Her shoulders relaxed, a rare vulnerability in her posture. "You repaid me tenfold by believing in this mission. I want us to build something that lasts not just for patients, but for the organization's future." She paused, searching his eyes. "And I want us to build something together." Alex set down his sandwich, a tingle of warmth blooming in his chest. Together, he echoed. The word felt heavy with possibility. Their afternoons blurred into evenings of strategy sessions, estimating concrete orders, vetting fencing materials, sketching the layout of exam chairs and waiting room benches. Isabella and Alex traded ideas. He suggested alternative cold storage units based on his van experience. She adjusted pathways to optimize patient flow. Each correction came with mutual respect and a shared laugh when minor errors surfaced. Over time, their partnership flourished, the lines between CEO and technician softening into 2 collaborators united by purpose. One late afternoon, as the team wrapped up for the day, Isabella found Alex reviewing cost projections alone. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him run his finger along the margin notes. The soft glow of a desk lamp highlighted his focused expression. "I didn't hear you come in," he said without looking up, then offered a quick smile. "Need something?" She stepped forward, folding her arms. "I wanted to thank you. The team's morale has skyrocketed since you came on board. They respect you." She paused, voice hushed. "And I respect you." His eyes met hers, and something in the air shifted, an electric current born of shared purpose and unspoken admiration. The space between them crackled. He closed his notebook, standing. "I respect you too. You've built One Care from the ground up, and you trusted me to help carry that dream." She took a slow breath, both of them suspended in a moment where titles and roles melted away. Then she reached out, brushing a hand across his forearm. His skin warmed beneath her fingertips, and he felt a flutter of anticipation. "Come," she said softly. "Show me your favorite part of these plans." He led her to the map section where they'd planned a community garden just outside the main entrance, a spot where patients could sit among raised beds of medicinal herbs. "This," he said, pointing. "We'll build the beds low enough for wheelchair access and plant calendula chamomile and lavender to bring comfort. I wanted something that nourishes beyond medicine." Isabella's hand lingered on his arm. "That's brilliant. I didn't think of that." She turned to face him, her eyes shining. "That's why I need you, because you see details I can't." He swallowed, the world narrowing to her gaze and the distance between their shoulders. "We see together," he corrected, voice low. A moment stretched between them, pregnant with the promise of something more than professional admiration. Then she closed the gap, gently pressing her forehead against his. He felt the rhythm of her breathing, steady and comforting. "I'm glad we're building together," she whispered. He rested his hand on her waist, warm through her blazer. "Me too." Behind them, the glow of desk lamps and the scattered papers of tomorrow's blueprints blurred into insignificance. In that quiet intersection of plans and hearts, their shared purpose deepened into connection. Two people, once strangers on a snowy road, now architects of hope and each other's future. And as the sun set beyond the city skyline, Alex Turner and Isabella Quinn stood surrounded by the promise of a clinic that would heal communities and a partnership that would heal two souls. They remained there, steam rising from their coffee cups, united in vision and tenderness, ready to build a world that would stand long after the last brick was laid. Late evening shadows pooled in the corners of the One Care Health stairwell as Alex Turner followed Isabella Quinn to the rooftop terrace. The doors swung open to reveal the city spread beneath them, a galaxy of streetlights, neon signs, and distant car headlights winking like fireflies in the dark. The crisp autumn air carried a faint scent of wood smoke and late-night coffee, a reminder that life pulsed on below as relentless and hopeful as ever. Alex stepped onto the gravel-strewn deck, first the soles of his boots crunching softly. He paused at the railing, resting his arms atop the cool metal, and gazed out at the skyline. He felt small in that moment, just one man in a sea of buildings, but also profoundly connected to something larger. After weeks of shifting from emergency calls to stifled accusations and triumphant vindication, this quiet space felt like a sanctuary of clarity. Isabella joined him a heartbeat later, her dark coat pulled tight against the breeze. She leaned forward, mirroring his stance, and they stood side by side in companionable silence. Below them, a taxi horn honked, and a train rumbled through its underground tunnel. But here, it was just wind and the gentle hum of the city at rest. Alex cleared his throat, tracing the horizon with his eyes. "It's different up here," he said, voice low, almost peaceful. Isabella nodded. "I come up here when I need to remember why we do this, why we keep pushing." She inhaled deeply, exhaling with a small sigh. "I guess tonight I needed to remember why I started it all." He shifted his weight, glancing at her profile. "I can't imagine what it took," he said gently, "to turn that rescue night into a company that saves thousands of lives." She offered him a half smile. "Some nights I can't either." She folded her arms, fingers tapping the railing. "It wasn't easy selling my shares, walking away from the board, learning to run clinics instead of quarterly reports. Sometimes I wonder if I traded one kind of loneliness for another." Alex looked at her, the soft glow of streetlights casting shadows across her face. "Loneliness." She nodded, gaze drifting to the street below. "Boardrooms are empty, in their own way. Everyone chasing power metrics headlines, no one ever stops to ask how you're really doing. I built walls of titles and expectations around myself so high that even I couldn't see in." He absorbed her words, recalling the first time he'd pulled her from that wreckage, how she'd tried to thank him for saving her life, only to learn he was disappearing into the storm as quickly as he'd arrived. "I never got to ask what was behind those walls," he said. "I only saw a stranger in danger." Her laugh was a soft exhale. "And you gave me more than a rescue. You gave me perspective, but sometimes perspective is a lonely place to live." He reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. The gesture was unexpected, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head to meet his eyes. "You've been here with me," he said. "Through equipment failures, sabotage, every roadblock. You didn't have to stay." Her fingers traced a pattern against his coat sleeve. "I wanted to," she whispered. I wanted you to know that this partnership means everything. He closed his eyes briefly, the memory of every late-night repair and every hurried route, flashing in his mind the diagnosis kiosk that froze in a blizzard, the freezer line that threatened to spoil thousands of vaccines, the junior technician who nearly destroyed his career. Through it all, Isabella had never wavered in her belief in him. "I've been afraid," he admitted, voice low as the wind. When he spoke again, his words came in a steady tide. "Afraid that if I showed you who I really am, the guy who can't fix everything, who still hurts for my wife, who worries I'll never be enough, you'd see me as nothing but broken." He felt vulnerability prickle in his chest, a rawness he hadn't allowed himself in years. Yet as he risked honesty, Isabella's eyes softened as though she was offering him refuge he'd lacked since Lisa's last days. "I see you as whole," she said after a moment, each word deliberate and calm. "Broken and healed, scarred and resilient, everything that makes you who you are." Alex opened his eyes and looked at her, the city lights refracting in her gaze. His heart felt heavy and buoyant at once. "I keep thinking back to that night, how you tried to pay me and I refused. I did it because I had to get home to my daughter, but also because I didn't want kindness to become a transaction." He hesitated. "Tonight, I wanted you to know that you became my kindness. You trusted me when I didn't trust myself." She exhaled softly, stepping closer until their shoulders brushed. "You've become mine too," she replied. The steel in her voice had melted into something warmer, more vulnerable. "I've been afraid to admit it, afraid of losing the person who saved me." Alex turned, facing her fully now. The glow of the street lamps painted soft shadows across his features. "I don't want to lose you," he said, voice steady. "Not as a friend, not as my boss, not as the woman who showed me a new path." Isabella's teeth caught her bottom lip, a nervous gesture he recognized as purely human. "I don't want to lose you either," she confessed, her hand slipping from the railing to his. "I was afraid that what we're building was just another project, but it's more than that now. It's you and me trying to do something good together." He closed the distance between them, offering her his other hand. "Then let's not pretend otherwise," he said softly. "No grand declarations. No promises we can't keep. Just, I'm here. I'm walking forward with you." Her eyes glistened with tears, bright honest, a reflection of the city's scattered lights. "Side by side," she whispered. He nodded. Side by side. They stood there, two silhouettes against the sprawling metropolis. Hands entwined, the night air weaving them closer. Below, distant sirens lulled and an occasional car passed, but on that rooftop time stretched unhurried and full of possibility. Without another word, Isabella leaned her head against his shoulder. He felt the gentle rise and fall of her breath matching his own. In that shared silence, neither tense nor empty, they let the unspoken settle between them. Their fears laid bare, their hopes entwined, their willingness to step into whatever came next hand in hand. When the first raindrops began to fall, Alex reached into his coat pocket and produced a small umbrella. He opened it over their heads, sheltering them from the drizzle. She looked up at him, a soft smile curving her lips. Sometimes it took a wrong turn to lead to the right moment, he thought. Sometimes the quietest confession held the greatest power. And as they huddled beneath the umbrella, gazing down at the city they'd pledged to serve, Alex Turner and Isabella Quinn faced the future not as strangers or mere colleagues, but as two people bound by kindness, trust, and the quiet strength of walking forward side by side. The first blush of dawn painted the sky in pale rose and gold, as a hush settled over the newly completed One Care Health facility. The building's glass facade caught the early light, reflecting the promise of a new day. Volunteers and staff assembled on the sidewalk, nurses in crisp scrubs, technicians still blinking away sleep neighbors, curious to see what this health hub would bring to their community. Isabella stood at the front, ribbon and ceremonial scissors in hand, her dark ponytail tucked under an understated cap that read, "One Care." Alex Turner slipped quietly to stand beside her, the soft hum of the city waking around them. Isabella stepped forward onto the small wooden platform erected for the ceremony. Behind them, the facility's doors gleamed, ready to open. A photographer snapped a quick image, the flash mingling with the gradual morning star. Isabella gestured for silence. Thank you all for being here at this early hour, she began, voice steady but warm. Today we celebrate not only brick and mortar, but the spirit that built this place. Compassion in action. She paused, eyes sweeping the crowd, standing families, city officials, the One Care team. When Alex Turner pulled me from that snowstorm more than a decade ago, he taught me what real care looked like. It wasn't in grand gestures or press releases. It was in a quiet act of kindness on a frozen highway. A murmur of recognition rippled through the staff. Alex's name had become synonymous with their mission, yet most present had only heard the story in boardroom recaps. Now they saw the man who saved the CEO's life, who'd become their champion. Isabella smiled at Alex. He brought me home, she said, voice catching slightly, and I promised that day to pay that kindness forward. One Care was born from that promise. She lifted the ribbon between two polished posts. Alex and I would be honored if you would join me to officially open the Pine River Community Health Hub. Alex stepped forward, heart thrumming with a mixture of pride and humility. He took the scissors in his calloused hand, a tool he'd never imagined wielding for ceremony. Beneath the platform, Emma and his niece Sophie stood with wide eyes, handing out programs printed with the day's schedule, ribbon cutting, guided tours, free screenings, and coffee for all. Alex cleared his throat. He wasn't a man of many words in public. He fixed engines and machines, not speeches. But something about dawn-lit faces looking at him, faces he had saved, faces he had come to cherish, gave him courage. He raised the microphone. Good morning. His voice was low at first, then found strength. I never thought I'd be here holding these scissors instead of a wrench. I came to One Care thinking I was just fixing refrigerators and generators. I didn't know I was fixing lives, mine included. A soft chuckle traveled through the crowd. Alex glanced at Isabella, remembering the snow-chilled pavement, her trembling hand scraped on broken glass, his jacket wrapped around her shoulders. Isabella once told me that compassion is the currency that never devalues. I believed it because she lived it, but I learned its true value when she said, "Your kindness saved me." That night when I drove away, I didn't realize she'd invited me into a life-changing mission. He paused, letting the weight of that moment drift through the morning air. We've come a long way from a parking garage in a blizzard. Today, this building stands as proof that one person's compassion can ripple outward through miles of back roads, through wheels and engines and heavy lifts, all the way to hearts that were waiting for help. His gaze found Emma's in the front row. She offered him a proud grin. He lifted his free hand in a small wave. Pine River Community is now part of our family. May this place be more than walls and lights. May it be a sanctuary of hope where every person who walks through those doors knows they matter. He exhaled, the last trace of nerves replaced by clarity. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for believing in kindness. He stepped back, handing the microphone to Isabella. She and Alex stood shoulder to shoulder as she held the ribbon. With a nod from both, they snipped in unison, scissors glinting in the new light, the ribbon falling away in two perfect halves. A cheer rose and the doors swung open. Staff flooded forward, ushering neighbors inside. Alex watched families file in, some timid, some jubilant, but all carrying the same glint of hopeful curiosity. A nurse offered free flu shots. A technician demonstrated a diagnostic kiosk. Volunteers unwrapped coffee cups, steaming, comforting. Isabella slipped an arm through his. You did well, she whispered, her breath warm against his jacket. He nodded, breathing in the mingled scents of freshly painted walls and brewing coffee. We did well, he corrected, meeting her eyes. We started something good. She smiled, her hand tightening on his. And it's just the beginning. Later, as they guided a group of local reporters through the examination rooms, Alex slipped away to a corner where a small plaque had been mounted beside the door. In honor of Alex Turner, whose act of kindness on a snowy night ignited a movement of care. He pressed a fingertip to the raised letters, the metal cool beneath his touch. A reporter approached, notepad poised. Mr. Turner, could you tell us what this plaque means to you? She asked. He turned, shrugging with characteristic humility. It means someone remembered that night, he said softly, that they didn't let it get lost in time. And they turned it into something that helps people every single day. That's better than any accolade I ever sought. The reporter nodded, jotting notes. Alex lingered by the plaque a moment longer, then joined Isabella as she led a small group to the pharmacy station. They moved together through the facility, a man of mechanics and a woman of vision side by side. By mid-morning, the unveiling had given way to real work, checking the new sterilizers, adjusting the lab's ventilation, responding to a patient's request for a blood pressure check. Alex crouched beneath the diagnostic kiosk, recalibrating a sensor that had gone slightly out of alignment. A child peered in curiously. He flashed a grin as he handed her a lollipop from the supply drawer. She ran back to her mother, proud as a queen with her sweet prize. Isabella watched him from across the room, heart swelling with gratitude and affection. She approached, slipping into the doorway beside him. "That sensor's off by 0.02 psi, she observed. "Good catch." He straightened, dusting his knees. "Habits die hard." She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "You're going to keep me honest for years to come." He wiped his hands on a rag and offered it to her. "That's the plan. We'll keep each other honest." She accepted the cloth and dabbed at a smudge on her white coat. She'd traded her suit for a lab coat this morning and smiled. "I'm glad you're here." He tilted his head. "Me too." Behind them, the clinic buzzed with life. A mother cradled her newborn during a routine checkup. A grandfather received a blood sugar consultation. Volunteers organized paperwork with steady efficiency. Everywhere Alex looked, he saw the echoes of that snowy night gratitude relief trust. And he realized how far he'd come from a weary dad clutching cattle calls and past due notices to a man whose hands built hope on 4 wheels and now in a shining facility. As Isabella stepped forward to address a group of community leaders, Alex lingered a moment, taking in the hum of purpose around him. He closed his eyes, remembering the hush of falling snow, the glare of headlights, the tremor in a stranger's voice. He whispered a quiet thanks to fate for that wrong turn for the open door that had become the right one. Then he stepped back into the flow of the day, tools in hand, ready to tackle the next challenge. Because ribbon cuttings were moments to celebrate, sure, but the real redemption was in the work they would do from dawn to dusk, day after day, touching lives in countless small ways. And as the sun climbed higher, Alex Turner and Isabella Quinn walked forward together, guardians of compassion, champions of second chances, their redemption story just beginning. The grand hall of the Young Masters Invitational thrummed with hushed anticipation as Alex Turner and Isabella Quinn settled into their front row seats. Crystal chandeliers overhead cast prismatic light across the chessboards lined up like soldiers ready to do battle. Emma, his daughter, and now their shared prodigy, sat at the final match table in a simple navy blazer, her brown curls tucked behind one ear. Across from her, her opponent, a poised 14-year-old with a fierce intensity, adjusted his pieces for the last time before the clock began. Alex's hand rested lightly on Isabella's knee. Her fingers closed over his in a silent vow of support. It was more than a chess tournament. It was the culmination of their journey, his chance at redemption, her proof of purpose, and Emma's emergence as a bridge between 2 lives. "Remember, breathe," Alex whispered. "You've prepared for this." Emma nodded, her eyes fixed on the board. "I see it, Dad." Across the table, she opened the game with her signature queen's pawn. Isabella caught Alex's eye and offered a small, proud smile. Behind every move lay a lesson in resilience and trust, lessons taught over late-night study sessions, long drives to clinics, and rooftop confessions. The opening gambit set the tone, a bold exchange that surprised even the commentators. Emma's knight sprang forward, sacrificing a pawn to gain critical control of the center. Gasps rippled through the audience. Alex leaned forward as Isabella's breath caught. She mouthed, "She did it." Emma's opponent blinked, regaining composure, but the momentum had shifted. Move by move, Emma navigated the complexities, weaving her pieces into a net of calculated pressure. Her father's heart pounded. Her mother's chest tightened, both aware of the gravity behind each silent move. At one point, Emma paused, recalling Isabella's advice. "Don't just see the board, feel the story. Each piece has a purpose." She turned her bishop to pin the opponent's rook, and Isabella caught a tear at the corner of Alex's eye. He brushed it away, but it left a sheen of pride on his cheek. As the game approached its climax, Emma's queen found a diagonal path to the king's side, delivering a stunning double check. The opponent's pieces crumbled under her quiet assertion. With a gentle slide, Emma placed her queen to declare checkmate. A beat of stunned silence, then the hall erupted. Applause thundered like a victory march. Isabella stood clapping so vigorously she threatened to clap Alex from his chair. Alex rose beside her, laughter and tears mingling in his expression of unguarded joy. Emma looked up from the bored eyes shining. She stood as well, stepping around the table. The ribbon of audience applause trailed behind her as she crossed the distance to her parents. Alex bent down to embrace her, and Isabella slipped an arm around both of them. For a moment, the three of them swayed together in a cluster of triumph and tenderness. A reporter's microphone poked into view, but Emma ignored it. Instead, she squeezed her mother's hand and looked to her father. Voice steady and clear. "Thank you, Mom." "Thank you, Dad." Time suspended. The hush that followed was not awkward, rather it was sacred. A communal exhale that felt like the universe itself acknowledging the moment. Emma's simple words dissolved every title, CEO and technician, single dad and visionary leader. What stood in their place was something stronger, a family forged by checkmate, reborn through acts of unexpected kindness and the courage to embrace second chances. Isabella pressed a gentle kiss to Emma's forehead. "We're so proud of you," she murmured, voice thick with emotion. Alex nodded, hugging his daughter close. "You played every move with heart," he said. Emma pulled back to look at them, her cheeks flushed. "I couldn't have done it without you." Her gaze swept from Isabella's proud smile to Alex's shining eyes. "You both believed in me when I doubted myself." Isabella's free hand stroked Emma's hair. "You believe in yourself," she said. "We just helped you see it." Alex ruffled Emma's hair, laughter trembling in his chest. "Every time you stepped up to the board, you reminded me why I keep showing up too." They shared a quiet moment before Alex held Emma's hand out to Isabella. Isabella took it, and they formed a small chain, Dad. Emma, Mom, standing together on that polished floor as confetti quietly drifted from above, like memories made manifest. After journalists and well-wishers swarmed them with congratulations, the family slipped away to a quieter hallway. Emma leaned against the wall game ribbon pinned to her blazer eyes, alight with triumph and the relief of completion. Alex offered her a bottle of water. Isabella draped her coat over Emma's shoulders. As they walked toward the exit, the city's lights beckoned beyond the glass doors. The night air outside was cool, scented with rain that had begun to fall in soft, scattered drops. Alex opened his umbrella. Isabella slipped her arm through his. Emma walked between them, small and triumphant. "Where to now?" Alex asked, voice light with wonder. Emma glanced up at him, then at Isabella. "Someplace cozy," she said. "Maybe waffles." Isabella laughed. "Waffles it is." They stepped out onto the sidewalk, a trio moving in sync footprints in the rain-damp concrete. Street lamps traced their path in amber pools. The city, vast and untamed, seemed to part for them, offering a quiet benediction. Under that glow, they were more than a CEO and a maintenance technician. They were more than a rescuer and the rescued. They were a family knit together by a letter never sent a wrong turn that became the right one, hundreds of miles of clinics and late-night conversations, and a daughter whose first move had changed everything. As they walked toward the diner's neon sign, confetti settling in the gutter behind them, Alex took Isabella's hand and squeezed gently. She met his gaze, and without words, they acknowledged the wonder of what they'd built, a love not born of grand gestures or sweeping vows, but forged in the quiet miracles that arrive when strangers step in, when second chances are embraced, and when a simple act of kindness echoes across a lifetime. And in that misty rain under the watchful city lights, they knew there was nowhere else they'd rather be.